All right, so let's look at some more comments regarding my ethics complaint that was put on the Jefferson County, Washington page. Now, this is David Johnson interacting with a woman. I'm not going to read her part. He says, I'm not in favor of the pool or the changes to the golf course. My comment is not to suggest that the direction of our city council is taking on these two issues are reasonable. I have argued against this gentrification as we do not have the money for them. The idea that Faber is looking at his own bottom line is interesting. What evidence do you have for that claim? Well, Mr. Johnson, regarding your last message, to me, you said, that I needed to have evidence, and I'm so glad you mansplained that to me. Just because you don't believe there's any evidence, you have not seen a couple thousand public records over the last year. Just because you don't believe there's any evidence, that doesn't mean there isn't any evidence. And the woman that you're talking to has clearly done more homework than you. So, using my ethics complaint to bully women, to abuse women that you don't agree with. And so you have an issue with the pool and you have an issue with the golf course, but you just don't want me to be the one to talk about it. So why didn't you do a complaint about it? If there's an issue about city council and not having the money for it, what are you doing about it? Why slam somebody that is trying to do something about it? Don't use my ethics complaint as your excuse to abuse and bully women. And then the woman had talked about the size of the room, that maybe the room should be bigger because, they were saying that the city council room wasn't necessarily big enough. We said, as for the size of the room, this was a regularly scheduled meeting with options for online participation. Okay, great. We went there to participate in person. We were told by the police we would be given equal access. We weren't. We told police about Antifa being there. We were ignored. We were pushed up against a brick wall. We were threatened. We were bullied. We were smashed. We were kicked. They let the other side in, the other side of the issue, in the back door to fill up the chambers purposely. Public records show David Faber knew the night before. Public records show that the cop and the city manager worked to get, the group that was in favor of Faber in the back door. So you saying that we could have participated online. Okay, so I didn't know I was going to be mobbed. I took camera stuff to film the event. I didn't plan to live feed. I had no idea that was going to happen. So maybe if I knew ahead of time, like Libby Winstrom and everybody else knew, and the police knew an hour and a half ahead of time that Antifa was there and there was all this mayhem and they were afraid of death and re-upping their wills. If I'd have known that, maybe I would have participated online, but I didn't know. I thought it was just some women going to talk downtown Port Townsend, no big deal. And we go talk at a city council meeting. Maybe there'd be some other people there with signs. I didn't know we'd be attacked. And once we were attacked, we certainly couldn't go and get online, right? I couldn't even get to my car. I didn't get to my car until 3 a.m. because I was attacked trying to get to my car. So I had to leave it there. So, dig a little deeper with your nonsense. So he says, I submitted comments prior to the meeting. Oh, well, ain't you special? Well, so did some of us. But that wasn't the point. The point was to have a press conference. That's why in advance we got a permit. Okay, and set everything up with the police. They knew all this was going on. They didn't provide any fencing, any protection, or any warning to those women. Okay, if they felt the Proud Boys were in town and they knew Antifa was in town, well, why didn't they warn us? Amy and Julie and most of those women that spoke are liberals. So they might have been afraid of the Proud Boys. I'm not, because I know that they're not going to, be the problem. Antifa's the problem. But why not let us know or do anything to separate the groups? What you're defending here doesn't make sense. Our group, a lot of us did comments online prior to. That's irrelevant. You're basically defending that if anybody has a permanent event downtown, that it's okay for people to silence them, and that if someone has a meeting, a council meeting, that it's okay to violate open meeting laws, which you clearly don't know anything about, and keep us out of the meeting. And just because you don't think we were kept out of the meeting because you weren't, doesn't mean that we weren't. So he committed his prior comments. And he says, however, at that same meeting, there were anti-trans speakers. So it wasn't a conscious effort on the part of Faber to keep people from attending. Well, first of all, we aren't anti-trans. And it absolutely was a conscious deliberate, knowing, malicious effort on the part of Faber. Public records show he knew the night before that the chamber would be filled. If some woman slipped in and mingled among them and pretended to be part of them or whatever, I don't know, okay? That's completely irrelevant. But yes, Faber absolutely had a conscious decision and pre-planned. Okay, he had intent. The records show that. So, anti-trans people could have waited in line. We're not anti-trans. No one spoke about anything anti-trans. Okay, this is just some excuse that you're using to abuse women. You know, a lot of you straight men out there are doing that. Okay, anti-trans people could have waited in line like I did in order to get in. Okay, great. Some of us tried to go over there and we were attacked. We were yelled at. We were threatened to be killed. We were threatened worse would happen to us next time. We were smothered with pride flags. We were screamed at and we were bullied. Meanwhile, the police and the city manager working with Faber let them in the back door to fill up the chambers which as much as possible. So if you got in, then you were obviously pre-approved as somebody special and on their side of the argument. So then he says, I could make the same assumption that they knew that there would be limited room and chose not to make sure they could get in. Yeah, good, okay. Well, do you have some public records to back it up? I know in your prior message you said, well, is there any evidence? You got any? Got any evidence to that? Because that's not true. And I got evidence that, you know, it's not true. Anyway, there's that comment. Stay tuned for some more of, you know, the women bash. And he's saying this to a woman and like he knows stuff, right? I know some stuff. And this woman was just speculating and just talking to him. He's not very nice to her. Anyway, stay tuned for more later. Love you guys. Well, not Mr. Johnson. Don't love you. Bye-bye.